Morning, Matt.
Morning.
Thank you for taking the time to do the interview with me. Do you mind taking a brief moment to introduce to our audience about yourself and your research program?
You bet. So my name is Matt Ruark. I'm a professor of soil fertility and nutrient management here at UW-Madison. I also am an extension specialist with the Division of Extension. I wear a couple other hats. I'm also currently the WPVGA BCS chair, as well as the faculty director to the Dairy Innovation Hub.
That sounds great. Um, and Matt has been the soil fertility guy for Wisconsin for a while. And today our conversation is going to revolve around the nitrogen conversation, especially nitrogen rate in the potato cropping system.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about your previous work and your ongoing work within the Rural Partnership Project on this question?
Right. So one of the most valuable sets of data that we have to help guide nitrogen applications on potato is data that's related to a nitrogen response trial on potato. So these trials are fairly simple, right? We're just putting out different rates of nitrogen and then measuring the potato yield at the end. And we can draw different regression lines through it to help identify what the optimal nitrogen rate is. And that's the data that underpins our recommendations, which are in which several farmers have to follow if they're following nutrient management plans. So that said, we don't actually have as many of these trials as we think we do, right? For as we all know, potato harvest involves a lot of digging. It's very time consuming to develop these sort of data sets. So we don't have near as many nitrogen response trials on potato as compared to corn. So my interest in the study is to say, well, how much data do we actually have, and can we let's organize all of the data that has been funded by the WPVGA in the past. Let's try to track down as much historic data as we can. That was conducted maybe as far back into the 90s as possible. And can we start to collaborate with other potato growing states to share data and develop out a big useful data set to help guide fertilizer recommendations?
Absolutely. Because making adjustment to that recommendation sounds like a big and daunting task, but it does play a very significant role in people's nutrient management. What are some factors that influence making a recommendation or doing nitrogen research in order to generate that?
So with these data sets, there's always two big issues that we run into: is where was the data collected, and what is the timing of the nitrogen applications within that rate study. So we have our Hancock Agricultural Experiment Station. It's a fantastic experiment station, but most of the data generated in terms of nitrogen, potato nitrogen response has been developed at that experiment station, right? So we need to find ways to conduct more of this work on farm, right? To expand the data set spatially. The second one is the timing of the fertilizer applications. Rate is one thing, but when is the nitrogen applied relative to how much nitrogen was applied? Everything gets pretty complex, right? We talk about in terms of confounding factors. Mm-hmm. It's a huge confounding factor. So when we are looking through all of this data, we have to also be considering that as well. And it can also help us develop out better experiments in the future.
That sounds great. And in terms of collecting all this data, who are the stakeholders that are involved currently, and who are the stakeholders that will be involved in the process of this project?
Well, I think that there's always going to be a lot of stakeholders here, right? So one is obviously the potato growers of Wisconsin. They have WPVGA has funded a ton of work in this space, and we're very grateful for that. We always look at every individual experiment, right? We'll report that back, to the potato growers, but we actually need to spend more time looking inward and organizing our data into a useful data set. So that's one. And two then is state agencies. They're very interested in how nutrient recommendations are created and developed, and so we need to open it up and make sure this process of developing a fertilizer recommendation is transparent.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. And it sounds like collecting and organizing the potato nitrogen response data is quite a big task. What are your plans in terms of trying to solve this problem and then get everything together? And what's the plan about revealing the findings after you collected the big data set?
So one thing is we're currently working with the University of Minnesota on sharing data sets, but then also having these data sets be able to talk to each other. What is all the information that should be in this data set? And it's it's a bit wonky, but like, do we have pH? Do we have organic matter? Do we have rainfall? Do we have the actual sand, silt, and clay content of the soils? All the background pieces, or what we call metadata, with can they be built into this data set, and how much metadata exists within this data set, so we can start to explore other factors that might influence optimal nitrogen rate. So that's one thing. It's going to be a long process, but we need to build this foundation now, and that's going to be a big one. But really, then as we sort of expand other future work, we also want to build in a lot of other measurements, right? And I think one of the big things that we want to start to think about is the crediting or the mineralization that's happening from cover crops, crop residues, other nitrogen inputs like nitrate from irrigation water. Are those contributing to the nitrogen uptake of the potato plant? And can we capture that in any way? So a lot of the future work is going to be based on nitrogen rates, but also a lot of additional measurements of nitrogen input and nitrogen mineralization in these systems.
Trying to build that nitrogen budget overall, right? That's
exactly.
You mentioned the word optimization. Can you spend just a little time talking about the nitrogen optimization pilot program that's happening throughout the state? And I know you're playing a huge role in that.
Yeah. So this is a fantastic program administered by the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. But and with a certain percent of the funds coming to UW-Madison to help kind of serve as a scientific advisor to each of these programs. And so this is a great program where farmers can apply directly to the state to conduct their own nitrogen work on their farmer fields. Mm-hmm. And then as a treat, they get to collaborate with myself and Monica Schauer, who's the program manager here for the NOPP, and to help make sure everything's designed properly, so where you can run the proper statistical analysis, make sure all the data is collected, and then we can help with the statistical analysis and provide reports back to the farmers. But what I love about that program is that it's farmer focused. So the farmers that are going to apply are going to focus on studying something that they're interested in, and that's going to lead to much better results than something being heavy-handed coming down of, oh, you should study this. No, these NOPP projects are fantastic because they're going to allow you to study what you want to study.
And I think both your research and the farmer-led research play a huge role in solving this problem together, right? It's the question that we're coming up with here in the lab, but also the questions that farmers already have, especially in the potato world, mm-hmm. and in the nitrogen leaching problem that we all face and share.
Yeah, and it also helps solve one of the big issues of how to do more on-farm research with potato, right? It's time-consuming. It's pretty cumbersome. It's not an easy design, and so, but there's a lot of really great studies that are happening out there where farmer groups have sat down and figured out how to solve the problem. So we're actually obtaining a lot more information from farm fields on nitrogen and nitrogen use efficiency and optimal nitrogen rate and timing from farmer fields with these funds.
And this is great to hear because I've done a lot of hand digging in the potato field, yes. and it has been fun. And it's great to hear that is being adopted by more and more farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for your time today, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the research in the future.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Guolong.
Thank you, Matt.